Welcome to DCEV's brand new channel where we're going to be bringing everything from electric transport, renewable energy, solar, all and everything in between. But more importantly, it's from your point of view, the customer, back towards the manufacturer, which I think is a big missing part of the jigsaw. So this is going to be your thing with engagement about your experiences. But first up, he calls himself a motoring journalist. I think he's a globetrotter. Mr. Dave Humphreys, who's going to kind of fill us in about what's going on today in the motor world of cars, electric cars, and all in between, and where we've come from 10 years ago. So welcome, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's
good to see you.
It's been a bit of a journey, the whole electrification.
Yeah.
I remember the first electric car that I drove in Ireland.
When?
It must have been 10, 12 years ago. The Mitsubishi IMEV, tiny little narrow thing. It looked like a bit of a jelly bean spaceship kind of thing, but it was. When I think about what we drive now, electric cars.
Yeah.
When I drove that, it was terrible. It's the only way I could describe it.
But why?
At the time, it seemed interesting, but looking back at it now, it had a tiny battery. It had no range. I remember I had it. It was maybe October. It was cold. The windows were steaming up, and it was one of those things that if you turned on the wipers and the heater, you lost 20 kilometers of range instantly. Yeah. And there also wasn't chargers. There wasn't public charge points then. So there was a handful of them around town. And literally, I was living in the city centre in Dublin at the time. And I was having to go around near to where the ESB headquarters was because I knew they had a charger.
Yeah.
But that was it.
But that would have been the only one, right?
And it would have been one of the few ones around. And that was when, EV chargers were just blocked up. People would just park there.
Yeah.
There was no consideration to electric cars. And it was genuinely I remember just being so stressed out by the whole thing. I thought, and that was when I just thought, this isn't going to work. This can't work.
You thought that it's just not going to take off. Yeah. This is a joke.
And when
But Tesla were like 7 years in then, in development.
Well, yeah, I mean, Tesla would have been coming along, but there wasn't really a huge amount of manufacturers really getting serious about it. And it was really only when all this legislation started to come in, and because everyone was kind of hemming and hawing about, is it hybrid? Is it plug-in hybrid? Is it hydrogen? Is it, everyone had a different idea. And it was really the last few years where everyone's kind of heads have been kind of knocked together and they thought, okay, no, actually, we're going electric. Electric is where it's at. That's where we are now. And the cars have come on leaps and bounds. Insane. Even because there was the IMEV, then you had the first gen Nissan Leaf, which the Leaf is a household name. It was a bit of, at the time it was a bit of an awful looking thing. It didn't have a particularly long. It didn't have the range that it kind of initially claimed that it would have.
Sounds familiar.
But the Leaf has continued on to be one of the biggest selling electric cars. They've done really well out of it. But now everything is changing. Like everything is on the table in terms of manufacturers. Some are outperforming more than others. Yeah. Some are really doing great stuff on electric. Others are like Toyota, a monster of the industry. They've been very late to go electric because they've been kind of holding off. They were so invested in hybrid, and they had this kind of.
They had the hybrid then.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when it comes to hybrids, they're excellent. Again, they're absolutely excellent, and it's unpopular among EV evangelists, but hybrids still have a very strong use case for people, because there are people that can't, there are a lot of people that want an electric car and can't for a number of reasons. It doesn't suit their day-to-day driving, it doesn't suit their lifestyle, they can't charge at home, all these kind of things. And the charging element is a big part of it. When people ask me, it's like, what do I need to do to go electric? It's almost binary. Can you charge it at home?
100%, because you're chasing around is just a disaster.
Yeah. And I know people go, it's fine, I'll get around with the public network. But the thing is, the public network in Ireland, it got quite good for a while, but we now have a bigger influx of new electric vehicles and more new models. Like every year, there's more and more electric models being sold, which is great. Don't get me wrong, it's great to see, but
There's a lag the other
there's
side.
a lag on rolling out, the charging network, particularly if you're going cross country. And I want to talk about range in a minute, but like when you're going cross country, you need to have an abundance of chargers.
Fast chargers.
Fast chargers,
Yeah, it has to be
exactly. So
fast.
you have to have that. And you've got places like, you've got Junction 14 down, on the M7 there. And that's good, but I've even been down there and there's queues of people waiting. And you kind of, I've experienced this kind of weird, almost like I get there and I plug in, and I literally plug it in, and I've had this almost passive aggressive, somebody parks facing you and they're like, they're
Right.
almost watching you kind of, I was kind of like, come on, like I need to charge my car too. So I think that's really where there's a bit of a lag, like you said, there's a lag in having these rapid chargers out there. There's huge swathes of the country that don't have proper charging. Maynooth is a university town. They've one charger. It's in a Tesco.
Is that it is a fast charger?
Yeah, but like,
David Type 2,
they
I
need
was
to
down
have.
there.
They need to have. We need to have way more
Banks of them.
way more. And like I'm very lucky. I get to see different parts of the world with the job, and you see a fast charging hub in Germany, and it's very different. There's 30 fast chargers
sensational.
there.
And solar
and that's
power,
what it
and
needs.
it's
Yeah,
the
that's
full-
what it, yeah, like in the net, like companies like Fastned, in the Netherlands, and they've got these great, really architecturally cool rapid chargers that have solar panels, all this kind of
It's
stuff.
the whole story.
And I appreciate it's not just a case of plonking in a fast charger. You can't just plug one in. I mean, the grid has to be able to support it locally and all that. And a rapid charging unit is, upwards of €50,000 just for the box. Like, so it is expensive, and you've got to sell a lot of electricity out of that to recoup your costs. But the smart companies now are seeing the investment. If you own a service station, like along a motorway services, and you put in a rapid charger, think about it. Like, that person's going to plug in there. You're going to have a customer for 20 minutes, 30 minutes at least. There, that means that they want to. And they don't want to sit in their car necessarily, so they want to go inside. They want to maybe like do some work, or so that means they're probably going to get a coffee, get a sandwich. Maybe it's a family trip. That's like 4 or 5 people. Then they want to have like whatever fast food or a healthier option. So this kind of charging as you go thing, like there is money to be made if you're an entrepreneur and you want to do this.
100%. Your petrol stations, mate, that's where they make their money, isn't it? From
Yeah,
food
exactly.
and
Yeah,
coffee.
totally.
It's not from petrol.
But also we need to have those facilities there as well. And there are some rapid chargers around that I've often used, and typically they're kind of put into a dark corner of a car park, and it's not especially safe. You're going to feel that if you pull in there late at night and you're on your own, it's not. You're not going to feel particularly.
But that's the thing, though.
Doing it.
It's kind of just it's catching up to a degree with these stations where it's like houses. The new builds have to have electric charge points now. It's like petrol stations have to be retrofitted, because they will only do it when they can see a return, a fairly rapid return, and like you say, it has to be rolled out very quickly. It really does.
And also, there's a cost involved in doing
Massive
it but to use it as well. I mean, that's where.
But how do we get 986,000 cars electrified by 2030?
It's not going to happen. All right, that is just. And this
That's
is
pie in the sky, but
it's absolute pie in the sky, because even when you run the numbers on best case scenario, in terms of, there's no supply chain issues, there's none of these things, and we're all doing that. By that date, 2030, we could maybe get to 580, maybe even 600,000. But we're way short on that. And that figure, when the government came out with this, it was just a ludicrous figure. And everybody in the industry kind of did a double take to go, how have you arrived at this? Because
see,
it just makes no sense.
But it's a headline that it goes over Europe and we're going to do this and it's great and all that. But then look, when we talk about the nuts and bolts of on the ground, someone driving from Dublin to Kerry or Kerry to Donegal or to Belfast or wherever it is, that's the reality. Like that's the actual reality.
Yeah, but the thing is as well is
that's
you,
not
you have to
changing.
get an electric car that suits your needs. So like I said, the first thing I always ask somebody is, can you charge the thing at home? That's the single most important thing. Second thing is you really need to sit down and run the numbers on how you use your car. Where do you go in it? In most cases, almost any electric car you buy will do what you need, assuming you can charge it at home. What I mean by that is the average daily commute across Europe is somewhere between 45 and 60 kilometers per day. That's what the average person does. So you don't necessarily need to have a car with a 109 kilowatt hour battery that's capable of 600 kilometers. But the thing is, we've always been, and it's partly the media's fault that, from when electric cars came out first, it was the only figure that mattered was the range, was how far can you go on that. And it wasn't necessarily true, because that created a lot of issues early on, because manufacturers said, oh, well, we can hit this range. But in reality, you could never hit that range, because this was done in the laboratory conditions. WLTP, which is this worldwide light harmonized test that everyone does now, it's kind of a standardized test for range, is a bit more realistic, but it's still not quite realistic. The US does a better job with their EPA rating, because it's much more realistic to what you get, and that's why you'll often see a discrepancy between a WLTP figure and an EPA figure in the US if it's the same model that's sold. But people need to just look at the efficiencies. How much energy is this thing consuming? So that's the most important thing, because you can look at that, you look at the size of the battery, and that's realistically what you're going to get. As a rule of thumb, because people always ask me, any electric car that I test, and I test every single one that comes out, all they want to know is, what's the real range? That's all people really want to know about.
So what generally is it, 20% less?
I'd say, because the thing is, your range will change based on the time of year. So, the simplest way is your battery in summertime, when the weather is warmer, it performs better. In winter, it doesn't perform as well. You're going to have the heating on more, all these kind of things. So your energy, so it does vary throughout the year. I generally tell people, a realistic warts and all is, take the range figure, take 30% off.
Okay.
And that's probably most of the time what you'll get. Now, the thing is, with range, you can have two people with the identical car on a full charge. One will get drastically more than the other, because you've got driving style, you've got how you're using it. So if you're getting onto a motorway from your house and you're absolutely just baiting up the motorway at 120 the whole day up to Dublin to Belfast, you're just not killing the battery, but you're just taking everything out of the battery. It's never harvesting energy. It's never regenerating. So you're not going to get as far as if you were getting in the same car and just dawdling around Dublin city centre in traffic at 30 kilometers an hour. It will go a lot further. So it's very hard for me as a journalist when people ask me, what's the real range? Because
there's so many.
What is the real range? Because it varies so much depending on how you're going to use it. What everyone has a different use case. So all I tell people is really have a good look at
30%.
How you use your car. Work out how much you drive a week. So are you going in and out of work? Are you having to take the kids to activities, or are you doing cross-country journeys and all that kind of stuff? And the reality is,
people don't do that much mind.
But the reality is, there are also some people that an electric car just won't work for them. And there are, I get the kind of extreme cases of, somebody asked me, oh, can I drive to Kerry to Belfast without stopping? And I thought, no, of course you can't. But if you're driving from Kerry to Belfast, surely you're going to want to stop. Your bladder is going to dictate
you need to empty
that
the
you want to.
bucket.
Exactly. So, don't get me wrong.
But you see, there's extremes. So people always think of the worst case scenario. But this is the way it's been sold to them. So when I remember having conversations with people coming up and looking, well, when in 2019 the Model 3 came out, it's like the standard range does 400 kilometers, and I go, well, I could definitely fit 400 kilometers because I do 380, and I was thinking, no.
If you're and that's the thing, if you're really tight on stuff, but the electric cars are getting better every time. They're so every year.
That's not going to be a conversation anymore. The range.
I don't think it is anymore. No, I don't think it is.
Or the acceleration is.
Yeah, I think the acceleration. I think that's a novelty factor that wears off with people.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is with people is like going electric now. I see so few barriers to doing it.
Yeah.
Cost is an issue. Yes,
Initial cost. Yeah.
the initial cost, and I know we're kind of in the middle of an energy crisis now, and cost of electricity is higher, but there are still an awful lot of pros to having an electric car, and I admit like they're not going to suit everyone, but nowadays they suit way more people than they used to. And when I think back to that IBF that I drove, and it was
but when you drive an electric car on your daily, it's so much nicer. And I think, as you said, barriers to entry is the cost, the upfront cost, because if you break that over 3, 4, 5 years, you'll figure it out that suddenly this car is cheaper than my other car.
You've lower rates of motor tax, you've less maintenance. The other thing is just is well-being. That they're all automatic. They're much quieter. There's no vibrations. So even if you are stuck in traffic, and traffic is something you can't really get around, it's much nicer being stuck in traffic in an EV than in a manual diesel. You're going first, second, neutral, first, second, neutral all day long. And that's the thing for me is where electric cars are going now is we're getting now into a really interesting point of time with electric cars in terms of the technology, how we interact with them, how they work, the design, everything about it. And there's so much stuff coming down the line that it's, for me as a journalist seeing this now, it's the most interesting time
ever
in decades.
It's
just everything is on the table, everything is changing.
And in terms of so where are we now, the end of September 22, who's going to be kicking it manufacturing wise? Forget about Tesla and stuff because they're always in the background, but say from January 23, what are the brands we should be excited about? Now for people out there as opposed to super flash hooked.
I think the realistic stuff is a lot of the mainstream brands that people will know. Volkswagen.
The new Nissan's gorgeous.
Volkswagen stuff, Nissan now have the Aria. Renault have the new Megane E-Tech Electric. And that was really, really impressive car. But there's also some affordable stuff that is going to start coming as well. Peugeot has just updated its E208 to now have a better range. So that's now hitting 400 kilometers from a small car. So you've got a number of small electric cars now that are in and around 30,000 euros, which
that's the price.
Which is if you're buying a new car and you're doing a bit of finance or whatever, that's a relatively affordable thing. You're not at the 60, 80,000 euro Tesla stuff, and that's the really important thing. So I think you are going to see the real established manufacturers, the names that they're now starting to really roll out big electric strategies, and maybe there's going to be some other stuff from all new brands, but that's a whole other conversation to have from further afield.
But the message to get across to people, and obviously we want your feedback as well, and your experiences of trying to buy a car or having bought an electric car. Is it better or is it worse? Because we need to know everything. We kind of know some of the answers, but it's an exciting time for people. But I think, like you said, is when we got the 30 grand electric car for new and the second-hand market coming in, that's when the barriers to entry break down and people get in. And as you said, if you can convince someone to get out of their ICE car into an electric and it doesn't really cost them much more, then that's when the game really changes.
Absolutely,
So. But anyway, thank you, Dave.
Yep.
Dave is probably off to Brazil and all these mad exotic places where we'll probably go to Spa. But thanks for joining us. We hope you get some benefit from that. Please give us feedback. Let us know your experiences because you will ultimately make this channel for us. So until next time, goodbye.